Nice launch trajectory and countdown net. Pad is clear.
10, 9, 8.
Launch auto sequence
7,
has started.
6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Go for launch.
Vehicle is supersonic.
Stage separation confirmed. Dragon, separation confirmed. Stage 1 is transonic. Landing legs have deployed. And Falcon 9 has landed.
Good evening. You're looking at a live view of Falcon 9 with a beautiful sunset in the background, set to lift off at 6:13 p.m. Eastern Time with 21 second-generation Starlink satellites on board. Hello, everyone. My name is Ronnie Foreman, and I'm a commercial sales manager here at SpaceX. I'll be your host for today's Starlink mission, which marks SpaceX's 212th overall mission, 13th mission in 2023, and the first launch of our Starlink V2 satellites. The satellites flying on today's mission will be the first of our second generation of satellites, also called V2 satellites, to fly. The full-sized V2 Starlinks are designed to be flown on Starship, while the satellites we'll be flying today, which we refer to as V2 Minis, have been modified to fly inside the payload fairing on board Falcon 9. Don't let the Mini name fool you, though. The V2 Minis are bigger than our previous satellites, and more importantly, they include more advanced phased array antennas and the use of E-band for backhaul, which will enable Starlink to provide about 4 times more capacity per satellite than earlier iterations. This means these V2 Mini Starlink satellites will ultimately enable us to provide more bandwidth, with increased reliability, and connect millions of more people around the world with high-speed internet. Among other enhancements, V2 Minis are equipped with new argon Hall thrusters for on-orbit maneuvering. These have 2.4 times the thrust of our first-generation system, and it will be the first time ever that argon Hall thrusters are operated in space. To date, Starlink now operates in 49 countries and territories around the globe, including Rwanda, our most recent addition. If you're interested in learning more about SpaceX's Starlink satellite service, please visit starlink.com. And on your screen now is Falcon 9 at our Launch Complex 40 in Cape Canaveral, Florida. Currently, weather and range are both green for launch, and we're proceeding
Falcon
with
9 tanks are pressurizing for strong back retract.
We're proceeding with a T0 time of 6:13 p.m. Eastern Time. The teams are currently tracking no issues with the vehicle or payload. And liftoff is just about 4.5 minutes from now. You can see the clamp arms have begun to pull away from the vehicle. And you may have heard that call out just a second ago that we're preparing to fully pull the strong back away from the vehicle. Perfect timing on the call out there. There we've got the clamp arms opening, and again, preparing to pull the strong back away from the vehicle. The strong back has 2 purposes for us today. Not only is it supporting Falcon 9 currently on the launch pad, but it was also the system we used to roll the rocket out to the launch pad in preparation for liftoff. The next milestone we're coming up on in just about 45 seconds will be completion of liquid oxygen load on board the first stage.
Stage 1 LOX load is complete.
So at just over T-minus 3 minutes, the Falcon 9 first stage is now fully loaded with rocket propellant 1 and liquid oxygen, or LOX for short. And we're awaiting completion of LOX load on board the second stage in just about 50 seconds. You can see some clouds forming around the booster on Falcon 9. That's actually the gases above the LOX tank venting to maintain a constant pressure. In just about 26 seconds, we'll see Stage 2 finish up LOX loading.
Stage 2 LOX load is complete.
And with that call out, Falcon 9 is now fully loaded with 1 million pounds of fuel and liquid oxygen. The booster you see on screen is flying for the third time today, having previously supported CRS-26 to the International Space Station and OneWeb Launch 16. After liftoff and stage separation, the booster is scheduled to land on our drone ship, a shortfall of Gravitas, this evening, which is currently positioned in the Atlantic Ocean off the east coast of Florida. Coming up next, we should hear that Falcon 9 is in startup mode.
Falcon 9 is in startup.
With that call out, we've heard that Falcon 9 is now on internal power, and the batteries on board the first and second stage will manage Falcon 9 during liftoff and descent.
LD, go for launch.
And as you just heard, the launch director has given us the final go to proceed for launch. Let's watch as Falcon 9 takes our 21 Starlink satellites into space.
T-minus 30 seconds. Seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ignition. And liftoff. 6-9.
Vehicles pitching downrange.
Stage 1, chamber pressures nominal.
If you're just joining us, we are T+30 seconds into our mission today, and Falcon 9 has successfully lifted off from Space Launch Complex 40 at 6:13 p.m. Eastern Time.
Power and telemetry is nominal.
Falcon 9 is supersonic.
With that call out, we hear that Falcon 9 is traveling faster than the speed of sound, around 770 miles per hour.
Max Q.
Max Q is the period of maximum dynamic pressure on the vehicle that it will experience during flight due to the forces of thrust, gravity, and atmospheric pressure. So we're just about 1 minute away from several events happening in quick succession. These are going to be main engine cutoff, stage separation, second engine start 1, and fairing separation. Main engine cutoff is when all 9 of the Merlin engines on the first stage shut down. Stage separation will be when the first and second stages separate from each other prior to first stage reentry. And And second engine start 1 is when we light the Merlin vacuum engine on the second stage. Shortly after that, fairing separation, we'll see both fairing halves separate from each other, then fall away from the second stage and return to Earth for recovery. Incredible views of the Earth behind Falcon 9 on your screen now.
We go.
Stage separation confirmed.
And back ignition.
So we just heard confirmation for successful main engine cutoff, stage separation, and second engine start 1, which you can see on your screen now. Coming up in just about 20 seconds, the fairing halves will separate from the second stage and fall back to Earth.
Fairing separation confirmed.
So there you saw and hopefully also heard fairing half separation. As a reminder, both of the fairing halves flying on today's mission are flight proven as well. Both are flying for the second time and our booster for its third. We will attempt to recover the fairing halves again today using our recovery vessel, Doug. Currently, the first stage is on its way back to Earth towards our drone ship, a short fall of gravitas, on the left-hand side of your screen, and our MVAC engine has been lit up on the second stage. If you're just joining us, today's mission is a SpaceX Starlink mission. And as most of you know, Starlink is a constellation of satellites in low Earth orbit, designed and manufactured by SpaceX to provide high-speed, low-latency internet to people living in remote and rural locations
signal, Bermuda.
around the globe. We're currently live in 49 countries and 61 markets around the world. As I mentioned earlier, we recently went live in Rwanda. You can see on the Stage 2 telemetry that Stage 2 continues to pick up speed on its way to space. And of course, Stage 1 is on its way back home. Great views of the grid fins as Stage 1 makes its way back to our drone ship, a short fall of gravitas.
Both vehicles are following nominal trajectories.
The next milestone we're looking for is going to be Stage 1 entry burn startup. Stage 1, also known as the booster, will ignite 3 engines to slow it down for atmospheric reentry.
Stage 1 FTS is saved.
Stage 1 entry burn startup.
As a reminder, the first stage on your screen right now, being used to launch 21 Starlink satellites into space, is flying for its third time.
Stage 1 entry burn shutdown.
That's confirmation of entry burn shutdown on the first stage, which is the first of 2 burns the booster will complete during this return.
Stage 2 FTS is saved.
Stage 2 continuing on its way to space with 21 Starlink satellites on board.
Expected loss of signal, Cape Canaveral. Stage 1 transonic.
You just heard the call out that the first stage is transonic, which means it is traveling near the speed of sound as it returns to Earth. In just about 20 seconds, we should be coming up on the landing burn for the first stage.
Terminal guidance.
Stage 1 landing burn.
Stage 1 has lit one engine to prepare for landing on our drone ship, a shortfall of gravitas. This final burn slows down the rocket to help it stick the landing on the drone ship.
Stage 1 landing leg deploy. Stage 1 landing set.
Great feedback from our team there, and of course, beautiful views confirming that we have successfully landed Stage 1.
Seco 1.
Nominal or parking orbit insertion.
Falcon 9 has successfully landed on our drone ship, a shortfall of gravitas, marking our 174th landing of an orbital-class rocket. And shortly after first stage landing, we also heard successful shutdown of our MVAC engine and good orbital insertion for those 21 Starlink satellites. With confirmation of the first stage landing and successful second engine cutoff, we're going to wrap up our launch coverage for today. Be sure to check out our social media for confirmation of Starlink deploy and more information on the V2 minis.
Expected loss of signal, Bermuda.
Thanks for joining us for SpaceX's 212th overall mission and 13th mission of the year. We'll see you again soon.